Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little subscribe button at the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, click that subscribe button. Really does help our channel grow, our audience grow, and I really do appreciate it more than you know. So click that subscribe button. Appreciate your support. Now, here's the video that you came here for. Start with the South, okay? So South Regional, listen, we just talked about it a minute ago, but let's go ahead and dive into some of these games, some of these matchups, some of the things that stand out to me when I look at the South Regional, okay? First thing that stands out, Auburn, #1 overall seed, said it a minute ago. I believe that's the right decision by the committee, okay? Bottom line for me with Auburn is that, listen, I know it has not gone well the last couple weeks. I understand that this is a team that is 1-3 in its last 4 games. Listen, I'll say this and defend Auburn a little bit, is that when I look at Auburn, I think it's kind of worth noting, of those 4 losses, you lose to Florida, or you lose to Tennessee, which I think is a terrible matchup for you. Never forget, Tennessee almost beat Auburn at Auburn. You lose to Alabama at the buzzer. You lose to Texas A&M a day after, or a game after you won the league championship. I'm still not freaking out about it. What I am sort of freaking out about, though, is that 8-9 game, because I just said it a second ago, having to potentially face Louisville in Rupp Arena. By the way, you talk about Kentucky fans that maybe bought tickets for that Rupp Regional being a little bit conflicted. Are we rooting for Louisville, our hated rival, or are we rooting for Auburn, who celebrated an SEC title by mocking us on our home court a few weeks ago? By the way, Kentucky fans, drop your thoughts in the chat because I'm actually pretty curious. Louisville, Creighton in the 8-9 game. Listen, Creighton's a great story. I think Louisville's a significantly better team. We're not going to go pick by pick, but that is one that I just, I'll look at it all week and I won't ever doubt Louisville. The thing about Louisville, like I said, 21-2 in their last 23. They've basically had one bad game since Christmas. That was against Georgia Tech on the road. Creighton, I think they overachieved a little bit. Stephen Ashworth is good, but he's limited. The one thing I will say, Louisville does not have a ton of size. Ryan Kalkbrenner could cook. So that is the 8-9 game in that region. Looking at the 5-12, interesting from the Michigan UC San Diego perspective, okay? Just mentioned this a minute ago, but Michigan, kind of getting a little bit screwed here. It's funny, right? Because we talk about how much impact do the Sunday conference championship games have. Well, I bring it up because some of these bracketologies had Michigan as high as a 3 seed. They get a 5 seed. And as I just said, they won on Sunday afternoon. They're probably on a charter back to campus now. They probably get back at 10 or 11 at night on Sunday night. And now they immediately have to fly out and play on Thursday at altitude. I don't think it's going to be easy. Now, the one thing I will say, I think this could be a trendy 5-12 matchup. UC San Diego is an insane 30-4 this year. I give UC San Diego a ton of credit. The one thing about them, they are just not a very big team as far as, how they play. Biggest guy on their roster is really about 6'8", 6'9". I think that could be a tough matchup. Michigan, of course, famously plays those 2 7-footers. So I think Michigan probably you should feel pretty good there, even though I know that's going to be a trendy 8-9 or a trendy 5-12 matchup. How about this? This is an interesting one. The 4-13 matchup. Why is it interesting? Texas A&M versus Yale. It's interesting for 2 reasons. Texas A&M, very limited in what they do. They don't shoot a lot of threes. They rely on a lot of offensive rebounds. But also, don't forget, Yale, of course, took care of business just last year in the opening round. Cover your ears, producer Matt. They beat the Auburn Tigers just 1 year ago in the NCAA tournament in an opener. So I bring it up because Yale ain't scared. Texas A&M is vulnerable. The thing about Texas A&M, they're going to have their highs, they're going to have their lows, but they're not a team. And it's so funny. Like I go on TexAgs every week, talk to David Nuno about this for months, is the fact that with the way they play, Texas A&M is never just going to have a 22-point lead and can cruise to victory. Every game's in the 60s. Every game's up in the air. Yale has that tournament experience. I got to dig into that one a little bit deeper, but I think that one's interesting and worth watching. Next, let's stay in that region. Ole Miss obviously is the 6th seed there. They are in the region where they will play the winner of North Carolina in their opening matchup of the NCAA tournament. So you talk about this is where North Carolina will be in the NCAA tournament as the last team in. They face San Diego State, and we'll see what happens because they will face Ole Miss on Friday in their regional. I believe that's where Ole Miss plays, right? Yeah. It would be. Yeah, it would be. Okay. So sorry, the bracket's a little bit screwy here, but I bring it up because you look at UNC versus San Diego State. One thing I will say, by the way, and I'm not saying I'm picking the upset here, but UNC, everybody's crapping on UNC. They had won 7 straight games until they lost to Duke in the regular season finale. And so I just bring it up because I think there's this notion that UNC is terrible. No, UNC lost to really good teams throughout the year. And so I just think, I do think there's the possibility that Carolina can go in, take care of business against San Diego State, and then face off with Ole Miss. So that's one I got to chew on a little bit more. Ole Miss is playing so well, beat Arkansas in that thriller in the SEC tournament. Obviously, following that game against Arkansas, played Auburn really tough. But Ole Miss is in as the 6th seed. They will face the winner of Carolina and San Diego State. Bottom half of that bracket, Iowa State over Lipscomb. Lipscomb played some tough competition in the out-of-conference. They played Arkansas at Bud Walton Arena. They played Kentucky at Rupp Arena. They challenged themselves in the out-of-conference. They go on to win the ASUN 25-9 overall. I'll tell you, I think Iowa State's a tough matchup. But the thing that's worth noting with Iowa State, they're not 100% right now. We talked about why we don't make final picks on Sunday night. Well, how about this? It's because Iowa State was without 2 of their top players in the Big 12 tournament when they lost to BYU. No Keyshawn Gilbert, no Tamin Lipsey. Both guys averaged double figures. That could be a factor. We will monitor that. I don't know that Lipscomb will have enough, but Iowa State is the 3 seed in that bracket. And then, oh, by the way, after that, this is a very interesting matchup beyond Iowa State facing Lipscomb, okay? I think Marquette, New Mexico. This is a Friday. If I'm reading my math correct, I think it's a 7:25 Eastern time start. New Mexico versus Marquette. Okay, New Mexico versus Marquette is going to be awesome. Cam Jones is one of the top guards in America. New Mexico has a kid named Donovan Dent. Donovan Dent, I'm telling you, could play in any conference for anyone in America. He has to be probably one of the most underrated players in all of college basketball. Smaller guard, but averaged 21 points and nearly 7 assists per game. New Mexico, of course, coached by Richard Pitino. I think New Mexico can pull off the upset, if you even want to call it that there. Michigan State plays Bryant in the final game of that bracket. Really quick, looking at some of the other stuff. Listen, again, we'll go game by game, and I'll make my final picks next week. I will say this. I think if Auburn gets by Louisville, I actually do like their path, okay? Because you're facing either a Michigan team or a Texas A&M team. I'll be real. I think Texas A&M could give Michigan fits because Michigan is tall, but A&M is physical and is going to beat the crap out of you, okay? And so if Texas A&M wins that opener against Yale, I actually think they match up pretty well with Michigan because Michigan is tall, but I don't know how tough they are down low. That's not a knock. It's just a reality. 2 7-footers that want to put the ball on the floor, want to do different things. I could see Texas A&M winning that game. And then if Auburn gets A&M, I just like that matchup for Auburn. I know they lost a few weeks ago, but that was at A&M. A&M was on a 4-game losing streak. A&M was desperate. So I would like Auburn in that matchup, potentially go to the Elite Eight. I'll tell you this, Iowa State against either Ole Miss or Carolina, I kind of like how those teams match up with Iowa State. Ole Miss is tough. They're physical. They're veteran. Jamin Brakefield, Matt Morrell, Juju Murray is the point guard at Ole Miss. Juju Watkins is the point guard at USC for the women's team. We'll break down the women's bracket sometime later in the week. Kidding. We're not going to do that at all. But I bring it up because I think either Ole Miss or UNC could potentially pull off an upset, again, if you want to call it that, against Iowa State. I do like New Mexico against Marquette. And I'll be real. I think either of those teams could beat Michigan State. Now, why that is noteworthy, why it could be potentially historic, New Mexico, great basketball tradition, okay? Some great teams. I remember Steve Alford was there. They got a 3 seed one year. They've been a really good program. New Mexico's never made a Sweet 16 in program history. So I think it would be a little tough against Michigan State. But Michigan State, I actually like that draw for Michigan State. Neither New Mexico nor Marquette has a ton of size. New Mexico, by the way, was a trendy pick last year. They played Clemson. and New Mexico could not get the win, so we'll see if they can do it there. And I'll just say this about the East region or the South region. We'll wrap really quick. I really do think if Auburn can get by, if Auburn can get by Louisville, I think they're in pretty good shape. Bottom half of the bracket, I think that Ole Miss North Carolina winner can give Iowa State fits. I think New Mexico could give Michigan State fits. I think this is a bracket. I think we could see a little bit of chaos. I think we could see a 6 seed, maybe, I don't want to say an 11 seed. I don't know if Carolina can make a run, but I think we're going to see somebody funky probably playing Auburn to go to the Final Four.